Hey guys, John here, and if you've been watching me for any period of time, you know I love me my mobile games, and I want to introduce you to my latest obsession, which is the newly updated Vikings War of Clans. Besides the fact that this game is graphically gorgeous, it gives you a lot of different options for how you like to play the game. Build an impregnable city, raise an economy, use your diplomacy, use whatever means you like to use to rule the world with you and your friends. Support my channel today. Download Vikings from the links below in the description and get your initial protection shield for free and my special bonus of 200 gold for a fast and successful start. Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege to have you guys joining in with me here today, and what a glorious day it is. What is it, Wednesday? Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night, 3 more sleeps until the world premiere of Star Wars The Last Jedi. I cannot wait to tell you guys about it. Once I have a chance to see it, of course, apparently the review embargo lifts on Saturday night, so as soon as I see the movie, I will be putting up a review for that. So, super stoked, guys! Yeah! I just can't even pretend to be professional. You know, sometimes say to me, John, you should be more professional. Whatever. I'm a slob doing a YouTube channel. Professional this. Anyway, so I'm super stoked. I'm very excited. I cannot wait. And I cannot wait to talk about some of the things that we got on tap for you guys here today. All right. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. I've got 5 topics that I have picked out from emails that you guys have sent in to me. Now, how do you send in a question or a comment or a topic that you want on the show? It's really simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Make sure you send on in that email in. Make sure you put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep your words, your emails, I should say, to 50, my head is completely gone today, to 90 words or less, or else it's too big for me to even put on the screen. Now, after we do all that, we're going to be taking live questions from you guys. There are 2 ways to get live questions on the show. Way number 1 is to use the super chat function in the live stream. Make sure you use that. I will go through all the super chats that come in. The second way is to send in a tweet. Don't send it in yet. Wait till we get closer to the end of the show. But you can simply tweet to me at John Campea. I'll make sure I save some time at the end of the show to get to your guys' live tweets, and I go through just as many as I can. Maybe you'll see your tweet pop up here on the bottom of the screen. All right, guys, with all of that out of the way, let's jump into it with the first topic of the day. And the first topic today comes to us from our good friend, Bryan Kruse. And Bryan Kruse writes, or Kruse, I suppose that's the proper pronunciation, writes, I'm curious how you see The Disaster Artist doing at the box office. The casual movie fan probably has no clue what The Room is. Could that turn off a lot of people from seeing the movie since they don't know what it is about? Well, thanks a lot for the question, man. And if you guys are subscribers to my YouTube channel, and if you're not, why aren't you? You guys noticed that I put up my review of The Disaster Artist the other day. This film is going to be in my top 10 films of the year. No doubt about it. It's going to be in my top 10 films of the year. It's a wonderful film, and for those of you who know The Room, you'd be forgiven, kind of like I did, if you thought The Disaster Artist was just going to be 2 hours of them making fun of those guys who made The Room. But there is a little bit of that, but it's also got heart and humanity, and it's kind of inspiring in its own unique way. I really enjoyed this film a lot, and it is bloody hilarious. It's really, really funny. And like I said, it's going to end up in my top 10 films of the year, no questions asked. But you raise a really good point in asking, how is this film really going to do financially? Because you go to the average person on the street and say, hey, have you watched The Room? And they're going to say, what are you talking about? Is that mobile game app? No, it's not. There's still a lot of people who have never even heard of The Room, let alone watched it. And even those that have, is some kind of a biography on an obscure little movie known as the best bad movie ever made. Is that really going to attract a huge audience? And the answer to that question is no, it's not. This movie, The Disaster Artist, was not designed to be a $500 million movie, and it's not going to be. But it has a different measurement of success than, say, movies like Justice League or Avengers Infinity War or, or a Star Wars film or something like that, right? There's a different level of success. Because number one, it didn't cost them $100 million to make this movie. They made this movie for very cheap. And it's a great story and it's wonderful, but this movie doesn't need to make that much money to be considered a big success. So by general definitions, is The Disaster Artist going to be a blockbuster? Blockbuster? No chance. No. It's just not. It's just not going to appeal to enough people. It'll have some legs because it's going to have some really positive word of mouth. It's going to have really positive critic reviews. So it's going to have some legs and it's going to do well. It's going to do well. But it's not going to make $400 million. It's not going to make $500 million, like nothing in those neighborhoods. So anybody who is thinking that The Disaster Artist is going to be like the biggest film of the year, no, it will not. It will absolutely not. But who knows? Maybe it'll surprise us. Great movies sometimes surprise us. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Mr. Moody. And Mr. Moody writes, I'm a longtime fan and congrats on hitting 100,000 subscribers. Thank you so much, Mr. Moody. My question is, if the Disney-Fox deal goes through, what could it mean for James Cameron's 75 Avatar sequels? Could it stay with Disney or would Cameron try to find a new company to distribute it? Thank you for being a huge positive influence on the internet and in my life. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Moody. I really appreciate that. And yeah, so when talking about this potential deal between Disney and Fox, and once again, I'm going to repeat this every day because so many people online still don't seem to get it. Disney is not buying Fox. They're not. They may buy a number of Fox's assets, but they're not buying Fox. I cannot emphasize that enough. I'm still seeing tweets every single day about Disney's buying Fox. No, Disney is not buying Fox. Fox is still going to be around. Fox is still going to be an entity. It's just that they're scaling down what they're doing. Disney is looking at buying a bunch of Fox's assets. So those are two very, very different things. Let's just keep that in mind. But when talking about this potential deal of Disney buying a bunch of Fox's assets, which would include their movie division, we often naturally want to instantly start talking about what does that mean for Deadpool? What does that mean for the X-Men franchise? Could we see the X-Men merging into the MCU? So understandably, that's usually the first thing that comes to mind. But also a really big issue is, what does it mean for James Cameron's Avatar films? Because he's shooting 4 Avatar sequels. I mean, that's the plan at any rate. He's doing 4 Avatar sequels. What will it mean for that? Well, actually, James Cameron was interviewed about that and asked about that about a week ago. And when asked about how would, this potential deal between Disney and Fox, how would that affect it? His basic response was, not very much. It's just not going to affect it that much. Now, look, James Cameron has a good relationship with Disney. Remember, Disney just opened that huge World of Pandora ride, so they're already kind of invested in the Pandora stuff. So according to James Cameron, if this Disney deal goes through and Disney does end up acquiring a whole bunch of Fox's assets, how will it affect the James Cameron projects? Probably not much at all. Everything will probably just keep going along as planned. You just might have a different corporate logo that pops up at the beginning of the film as opposed to, say, like Fox or something like that. So it looks like everything's full steam ahead. And if this deal happens, and again, that's a huge if, because remember, even according to the most recent reports, Comcast is still in the running to buy those Fox assets. It's probably going to end up being Disney, but it's, it's still up to Comcast. They could do it, or no deal gets made whatsoever. We'll have to just kind of wait and see. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Sam Ryder. And Sam Ryder writes, Hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much. Watch it whenever I can. With the rumors about Disney's acquisition of several assets from Fox's movie division, I've heard a lot of people skeptical that this could give Disney too much power and allow them to have a monopoly. Do you think this is a legitimate claim? Keep doing what you're doing. All right, well, thanks a lot for the question, Sam. And this is something that has come up a bunch about, hey, could Disney buying Fox, again, there's the wrong terminology, could Disney buying Fox create a monopoly? This isn't the kind of situation, though, like, and I think I might have mentioned this on one of the shows the other day. This movie studio situation is not like a situation with, like, I don't know, let's say the big phone carriers. Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, T-Mobile. You got 4 major carriers, that's it. in the Hollywood studio world, you've got Disney, Universal, Fox, Paramount, Lionsgate, you got Annapurna, you got A24, you've got these guys and these guys and these guys and these. And now there's only a few big major ones, like 6 or 7 big major ones. But the fact of the matter is there's a wider diversity there than in some major industries that just have like 2 players or 3 players at most. The Hollywood studio system is a little bit wider. It's a little bit more diverse out. So that's a little bit of a different situation. Plus, let's go back to the phone situation. Let's say AT&T wanted to buy a bunch of, not buy T-Mobile, but let's say they wanted to buy a bunch of T-Mobile's cell phone towers. There's nothing antitrust about that. One company buying some assets from another company, there's nothing in there that's antitrust. So that would be fine. And if we were talking about a situation here of Disney full out just buying up Fox, maybe that becomes an issue. Maybe that's something the FCC looks into or whatever, or the FTC, I should say. Maybe that becomes something they look into. Maybe it's not. I'm not really sure. But as it stands, Fox is just buying some assets off them. Some major assets, some big assets. But honestly, I don't think this would represent any sort of a major power shift. I mean, because really, what are we talking about? We're talking about one big property, one big IP, which is the X-Men characters, that Disney already holds the ownership of. It's just that Fox holds the license to them right now. But, you know, Disney is the owner of that already. So there's that. You got the Avatar films, but Disney at this point would just be acting as a distributor for those Avatar films. So really, those are the kind of the big things we're talking about. So I don't believe that any type of a deal between Disney and Fox right now represents any kind of a power shift, to be honest with you. I don't think it affects the landscape at all. I don't think it affects how, you know, when you're talking about monopolies and power shifts and, you know, things like that, you're talking about putting the competition then at a competitive disadvantage. But to be honest with you, Universal's position doesn't change at all if Disney buys some of Fox's assets. Paramount's position doesn't change at all if Disney buys some of Fox's assets. I really don't see how this would change things at all. So I really don't think there's an antitrust worry thing to be had here. And maybe there's some elements here that I'm not taking in consideration, and maybe I'm completely wrong. That's totally possible. But from the information we've got in front of us, I don't think that antitrust situation is something we need to be worried about at this point. Anyway, thanks a lot for the question. All right, we move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Alex Rivera. And Alex Rivera writes, "Hey John, great show." Thank you so much, Alex. "Have you looked into Ben Affleck's canceled Justice League film script, which was released online? If so, what do you make of it? I read it, and it could have made for a better Justice League movie." Okay, now, before I go into it, let me just say this. An alternative, any alternative, could have ended up being better than what you got, regardless of what you're talking about. An alternative Lord of the Rings script could have ended up better than the Lord of the Rings we got. An alternative Godfather script could have turned out better than the Godfather we got. Sure, it's absolutely possible, totally. But that doesn't mean it would have been great. And just because something reads great on the page doesn't mean it would have translated great onto the screen. So let's keep all that in mind. So for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, back, I believe, in 2011, Will Beall, who's a screenwriter, wrote a script for Warner Brothers for a Justice League movie that Ben Affleck was in talks to direct. Warner Brothers liked the script enough that they actually gave Will Beall an additional 2-film contract on top of it. Anyway, apparently that script that got trashed and replaced with Zack Snyder's Snyderverse, if you will, of the DCU, that script has surfaced and has come to light. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think it sounds bloody fantastic. I really do. There's a whole bunch of people out there right now poo-pooing on this script, and that's fine. Everything's subjective. If you have read this script and you hate it, that's awesome. That's great. I'm not going to try to convince you otherwise. But to me, it is exactly what Warner Brothers should have done from the beginning of this script. Now, look, this is going to take a while for us to get through, but I think it's kind of worth. Now, the original story broke on The Wrap. And here we go with this. Let me just bring this up here quickly. Okay, here we go. So now the wrap went through basically the highlights. They gave us the Cole notes. But basically, the movie starts with the Justice League already kind of all knowing each other. Okay, that's step one, is that they all already know each other. No need to waste any more time with origin stories. They start the movie, they start their universe with everybody knowing each other. And apparently the movie starts with a bang with some kind of big battle going on between Batman, Superman, Killer Croc, Lex Luthor, all that kind of stuff, KGB, all that kind of stuff, all that kind of nonsense. And basically what happens is, so Wonder Woman's not there, there's a big battle, Lex Luthor was trying to acquire kryptonite, but then in the midst of the battle, the kryptonite gets stolen, I believe, by Desaad, and I think Desaad takes it to take it back to Apocalypse, so Apocalypse would have, and Darkseid would have that kind of stuff. Then it goes off, the shots go off into deep space where Green Lantern, who was going to be a John Stewart Green Lantern, by the way, not Guy Gardner, not Kyle Rayner, it was going to be a John Stewart Green Lantern. Green Lantern and Hawkman are in space at some space club together, and they get into a big battle on this kind of stuff. Everything comes back together. There's going to be a battle for the world. Desaad kidnaps Superman. They're going to brainwash him, and then Superman goes into the future through a boom tube. I'm trying to sum this up as quick as I can, guys. Read this stuff online yourself so you get caught up to speed. And Superman goes a bunch into the future where Darkseid has invaded the world and killed 80% of the population, and the resistance is being led by Wonder Woman and Batman, and Wonder Woman and Batman have a child named Clark Wayne. Anyway, and then Lex Luthor is fighting with the resistance against Darkseid. They create a way for Flash to go back in time, warn everybody else. They all gather together, go to Apocalypse. They battle the armies there. All the Green Lanterns come. All the Amazonians come. We got the Justice League all fighting together, fighting Darkseid. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, it's madness. It's crazy. And it's exactly what DC should have done. Now, I said from the beginning, if you go back all the way back to the AMC days, the argument I made was that DC should not follow Marvel's formula. Marvel's formula worked great for Marvel, obviously, and it continues to work for Marvel. Awesome for them. My argument that I always stated, and a lot of very smart people disagree with me, and that's cool, but my opinion on this has never changed. I wholeheartedly believed, going back years, that what DC should have done was the opposite of what Marvel did. I thought DC should have started with a bang with Justice League right out of the gate and give this huge spectacle. If you want to talk about making a first impression on the movie-going audience, bang! There you go. And I'm reading through the outlines of this script, and I'm just going, oh my God, this would have been so much fun to watch in theaters. This would have been amazing, and it would have been a great way to introduce all of them at once. And then, once again, saying, I believe they should have done the opposite of Marvel. Then once you created that big bang and you got all the audience on board with you with this movie, then you start putting out your solo films off of that, because you already got the audience loving everybody from this one great Justice League movie. Then you break out and do solo movies, have them come back a few years later to do another Justice League film, branch back off to do your solo movies. It's the way I thought they should have done it. Is it chaotic? Absolutely. Is it a risk? Absolutely. Any kind of endeavor like this is a risk. Look, the way they did it was a risk, and the risk apparently didn't pay off all that much. Doing it this way would have been a risk as well, because you got Marvel doing it one way. Solo film, solo film, solo film, solo film. Then you do Avengers. That's their formula, and it worked for them. Awesome. That doesn't mean you need to follow their formula. That doesn't mean you have to do what they did. Do your thing. And your thing is Justice League. And you come out of are you fucking kidding me? You start off a DC universe with one movie with Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Hawkman, Aquaman, Lex Luthor, Darkseid, Desaad, whoever else you want to have in there. You start off your universe with that, you have immediately created a huge impact. Huge impact. And I know there's a lot of you screaming at your computers at me right now saying, John, it wouldn't have worked. You needed to just focus on solo. And I get it. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you have that opinion, that's awesome. And maybe you're right and I'm wrong. Totally possible. But I totally believe in this. And I totally believe that's what they should have done. And hey, it was cool that they went the other way. Hey, that's fine. They decided to lead it off with Man of Steel. I love Man of Steel. Top 10 all-time comic book films for me. I love that movie. And I've liked the DC movies. I have. But man, when I read over this script and I think about what might have been for this DC cinematic universe, where could they have been now? And look, we haven't even begun to talk about that thing being directed by Ben Affleck. Are you kidding me? It's fun to imagine, where would we be? What would the comic book movie landscape look like right now had this actually come to pass? If in 2012 they launched into production of this Justice League movie and they went with that direction instead of the one they went in. And again, there's lots of good stuff about the direction they did go. Lots of good stuff about it. I'm not discounting that. I've just always really felt like you come out of the gate bonkers like this with this one huge impact milestone flagship of a movie to start off that cinematic universe, do it the opposite way that Marvel did it. I just think it could have been all kinds of special. I think it could have been all kinds of fun and all kinds of special. And again, I know there's some of you guys out there that disagree with me, and totally cool. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm just saying that that's what I think, and that's why I think what I think. And I get giddy just thinking about it. So one of the things I really hope is that maybe there's a version of reality where if Warner Brothers does decide to reboot the DCEU, and I think they do. I think regardless of what direction they go, I think they need to reboot this thing. I do. But there's an argument that a good way to do it is to start with Matt Reeves' Batman movies. That's a great way to start it, absolutely. But maybe there's a version of reality where they decide, you know what, let's go back to that first idea. Let's go back to that idea that we almost did, but we turned away from. Let Aquaman come out in 2000 and at the end of 2018. Let that come out. Maybe even do Wonder Woman 2 just for kicks and get that out of the way. But then let's take a 6-month break, announce we're relaunching a brand new DC cinematic universe, and start it with the Justice League movie with all new cast, start off bonkers, make an impact. I don't know. To me, it sounds like could be a lot of fun. Although, maybe, if I was the CEO of Warner Brothers, maybe I would be running it into the ground, which is probably the most likely scenario. I would probably run it into the ground. But anyway, that's just my thought on all that. Let me know what you guys think. I'm sure we're going to talk about this more later in the show when we get to your questions and your comments and your thoughts on this. But I can't help it. I just get excited about that. That to me just excites me. I would love to see something like that on screen. Anyway, okay, let's go to the final question of the day before we go to your live questions. And the final question today comes to us from No Name. So apparently No Name wrote in this question and wrote, my question is, how much will we be seeing the Guardians of the Galaxy cast in Avengers Infinity War? Are they only going to be in the space sequences, or are they going to be in New York and Wakanda? Thanks for reading. All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And of course, Guardians of the Galaxy pop up in the Avengers Infinity War trailer. However, they only pop up at the very end. And they're in that sequence with Thor, where Thor turns out, who the hell are you guys? And it's the Guardians of the Galaxy. It was a great way to end that trailer. Wonderful way to end that trailer. So the question is, are we really going to see much of these guys in the movie? Or are they only going to be in space? Are them and Thor going to have something that they're doing in space and that's where they're held up? The answer to that, I'm pretty sure is no. I think they're going to be on Earth. And the main reason I think they're going to be on Earth is because remember about, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, they put out that video of them on set. And here's one of the really key images that we got is they're on set. And look who's on set together. Robert Downey Jr., Tom Holland, and Chris Pratt. So they're clearly on set together, which means they're probably shooting a scene together there. That's probably one of their days of shooting that they're doing it. And if they're in a scene together, well, that kind of suggests to me that the Guardians of the Galaxy do end up on Earth in New York or Wakanda, or wherever it is this whole thing is going to transpire. I got a feeling we're going to see this kind of like a Return of the Jedi, where we're going to see a set of action going on in Wakanda at the same time that a set of action is happening in New York, at the same time that a set of action might be happening in space. Like in Return of the Jedi, there's action going on Endor, there's action going on the Death Star, there's action going on with the Rebel fleet, and then they kind of coalesce into one big story. I got a feeling Avengers Infinity War is going to be like that it takes place. But again, let me bring this picture back up. This picture tells me, at least it suggests to me, that we're going to be seeing them all come together at some point. At least, you know, Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Star-Lord are going to be coming together at some point. That's how I interpret it at any rate. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. All right, guys, those are all the pre-selected emails that I have for today. We're going to go on now to the part of the show where I just take all of your live questions. Once again, 2 ways to get a live question on. First way is to send in a super chat on the live stream. I'll go through all the super chats. And then the second way is to use Twitter. Once again, you can start tweeting to me at John Campea. I'll go through just as many tweets as I can before the end of the show. But before we get to those, it is that time of the show for our little commercial break. This is my daily shameless plug where I plug the one thing that keeps the lights on around here, which is my Patreon campaign. So here's my little commercial break. We'll be back in 1 minute. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check. All right, guys, again, a special thank you to all of you guys who are already Patreon supporters of mine. I cannot express how much you guys really are the reason these shows are even possible. And guys, a couple of the benefits of being Patreon supporters: we have audio-only podcasts of the John Campea Show, Star Wars Talk Tuesdays, The Weekly Hero. Also, we do a little John Campea after show. So after the main show is done here, we go to our exclusive Facebook group and we talk for about another 10 or 15 minutes, a little bit more in depth about the topics we discussed that day. So go on and check that out and see if becoming a Patreon supporter is something that would interest you. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go to the live questions. And we're going to start over with the super chat. And we're going to start with the first one. Comes to us from Stig100-900, writes, what did W spend the $150 million marketing on Justice League on? A lot of it is television spots. You cannot underestimate how bloody expensive television spots are for movie marketing. They are outlandishly expensive. And Justice League did an ass load of television marketing. Then, of course, you got your regular trailers, billboards, magazine ads, online advertising, all that kind of stuff. Altogether, it ended up for one massive... And look, if you're going to spend that kind of money on a marketing campaign, Justice League is the kind of movie you want to spend that kind of money on for a marketing campaign. Didn't quite pay off, but, I mean, that's where you spend it. That's why you spend it. And believe you me, it is an expensive thing to do. All right, thanks a lot for the super chat, man. The next one comes to us from Mike Thompson, who writes, if the Disney acquisition happens, I will sorely miss that iconic Fox drumbeat before a lot of movies. You and me both, man. I remember when I was going in to watch The Force Awakens, and I knew that I was going to have to take a moment when that movie starts without because that's built into me as far as what a Star Wars experience is in the theater, right? Star Wars starts with that Fox fanfare, right? And it threw me off. It threw me off. Now, I got to admit, it doesn't throw me off so much with any other movie. But with Star Wars, it did, and I've gotten used to it now. But there's still a part of me that misses that little Fox fanfare at the beginning of the Fox movies. Totally the best studio intro. That and the old MGM one with the line, that was really solid too. But the best studio opening fanfare all time has got to be the Fox one. It's got to be the Fox one. All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. The next one comes to us from Punisher 20001, who writes, chances for a new Alien vs. Predator movie after The Predator, I think pretty much zero. I think they ran that into the ground. The critics hated it, didn't get a lot of audience support or love. I think they realized, hey, you know what? Predator's great on its own. Alien's great on its own. Let's not put them together again. They tried it a couple times, didn't seem to work. So who knows? Anything is possible. I just wouldn't put my money on that actually happening anytime soon. All right, this next one comes to us from Jacob Leaf, who writes, Do you think that Zachary Levi Shazam could be moved to the next DC film continuity if they reboot, since he hasn't appeared in the DCEU yet? That's exactly, thank you for bringing that up. I was having a discussion with a buddy of mine about that and how could DC possibly reboot and blah, blah, blah. That's exactly what I said. It's like, you know what? You don't even have to change things up with The Rock or with Zach Levi Shazam or any of that stuff. You don't have to change any of that because they haven't appeared in the DCEU yet. You could reboot the DCEU and still do that Shazam script. You might have to make a few changes to the script. That's fine. You could start and reboot the DCEU and still do your Black Adam movie or handle that however you want. All you got to do is make some minor adjustments and away you go. There was some talk about The Rock appearing as Black Adam in Suicide Squad 2, and that's still possible, but there's still a lot of things that Warner Brothers has laid the groundwork for that they could still use in a rebooted DCEU. So that's exactly what I was thinking, Jacob. Good point. All right. Next one comes to us from Koba. And Koba writes, Del Toro says that he regrets turning down the Dark Universe offer. Could Universal offer it to him again? I know he wanted to make Justice League dark. Is that what you're thinking about? I'm not really sure. Is he talking about Dark Universe or Justice League Dark? Was Guillermo del Toro offered a film for Dark Universe? If so, maybe I knew that and I'm just totally whiffing on it. Maybe I'm just totally forgetting it. When I think of Dark something, I remember Guillermo del Toro was trying to get Justice League Dark going. So maybe I'm forgetting something. I don't think I am, but maybe you're right and I'm wrong. Look, hey, that Mummy movie, I didn't think the Mummy movie they just did was the complete train wreck that a lot of people thought it was. I thought it was okay. I thought there was enough redeeming stuff in there that I thought the movie was okay, but it certainly was not great, and it certainly wasn't going to kick off your new cinematic universe properly. But imagining that being directed by Guillermo del Toro, that's kind of appealing. All right, next one from Eric Notar Giacomo, who just sent in a super chat without a comment. Thank you so much, Eric. Next one comes to us from Christopher Benson, and Christopher Benson writes, if Disney buys Fox's movie division, will that grant them access to Fox's pre-existing franchises like Alien and Die Hard? Well, yes and no. Yes, on the sense that they will have, the rights to those specific movies. Does that automatically mean they have the rights to those franchises? I don't know, because honestly, I don't know off the top of my head if 20th Century Fox has the overall right to the franchise, not just the existing movies, but any future movies. I don't know what that stands. Now, if Fox has the title, if you will, to those franchises, then yes, those then become the property of Disney. If they don't have the property, like the title to those franchises, they only own the existing movies, but they don't own necessarily any future rights to them, then that doesn't transfer over to Disney. So each one of these films have their own unique sets of contracts, and we would have to look at them each individually. So I do not know what the answer to that question is. It's a great question, though. All right, next question comes to us from, I love this screen name, Maximum Effort 44T writes, if another company bought Fox's assets, do the rights for X-Men and Fantastic Four revert back to Marvel anyway? The answer to that question is yes. As far as my understanding of it is that it's much like, and I talked about this on the show the other day, but it bears repeating. It's like the situation with Sony and the Spider-Man rights. Sony has the Spider-Man rights, but those rights only allow them to have it. If Sony wanted to sell the Spider-Man rights to, say, Paramount, they can't do that. It's either they got to have it and make Spider-Man movies, or they have to let them revert back to Marvel. That's how it works. Same thing happens with the Fox Studios with their X-Men franchise. They have a license, but it's a limited license. They can make the movies, but say Fox couldn't just up and sell the rights to X-Men to another studio. They couldn't do that. So my understanding, and I don't know all the legal implications of the contract, so maybe I'm wrong about this, okay? I'll just tell you what my understanding of it is. My understanding is, if Fox sells off their big movie division to, say, for argument's sake, to Comcast and Universal, then the rights to X-Men and all the X-Men, roots that go down underneath it, including Deadpool, my understanding is that those would then automatically revert back to Marvel. Again, there could be some specific clauses in the contract that change that I'm not aware of, so it could be totally different. My understanding, though, is if Fox sells off the division to another studio, the rights do go back to Marvel. That's my understanding. And again, maybe I'm wrong about that. Next one comes to us from Andre Discrovi, who writes, John, huge fan from Brazil here. Thank you so much for writing. I'm a huge fan of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Anyway, do you think there could be a Resident Evil movie reboot more centered on horror? All the best. Well, it's totally possible. Like, look, I'm not a fan of the Resident Evil movies. Everybody knows that. But the reality is, you make those for cheap, they make a certain amount of money, they're profitable. So why not? I mean, if you can repeat that formula from a business perspective, reboot it, make them for $50 million or less, make $190 million at the box office, and you make a few million bucks profit, I don't see why not. And look, it's not like the world, it's not like the movie-going audience is so attached to the continuity and canon of the Resident Evil movies that you can't just, flippantly go and reboot it. Of course you can. So, yeah, if you're asking me if that's a possibility, I could see it happening. I could totally see it happen. Absolutely. All right. This next one comes to us. If I lost him, though, let me see if I can find him again. I think it was Jacob Leaf. Yes, there he is. Jacob Leaf says, thank you so much for all you do, John. Well, thank you so much for saying that, Jacob. It makes my fragile, I'm very, very fragile, and hearing positive words of affirmation make me feel good. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Red4 writes, John, love your show. Which Hans Zimmer score is more likely to win an Oscar? Dunkirk or Blade Runner 2049? I get goosebumps listening to Blade Runner 2049. Hey, his work in Blade Runner 2049 was very good, but I thought his work in Dunkirk was great. So I'll lean towards Dunkirk, is what I'll go for myself. SSX Envy just put in a super chat. Thank you so much, SSX Envy. Appreciate that. Next one. One Danny EFC writes, Daisy Ridley has said she was misquoted. I'm glad you're bringing this up. Daisy Ridley has said that she was misquoted about not wanting to play Rey after episode 9. Do you think this means that we could get a solo Rey movie one day? Okay, so for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, there was an interview done with Daisy Ridley, talking about Rey, and she mentioned that, hey, I'm only signed up to do 9 after that, and maybe I'll come back sometime in the future, blah, blah, blah. What was implied was that she was done after 9. But one of the things I said on this show, I said, guys, keep in mind, Daisy Ridley never said in that comment, I am not coming back for episode 10. I am not coming back after 9. I said, yeah, what she said could be implied that she's not coming back, but she did not directly say that. And I said, you know what? I don't think she's being some kind of ungrateful jerk. Daisy Ridley does not strike me as that type of person at all. I think she's just being coy. That who knows where things go after 9, I thought she was just being coy, which was the right thing to do. Anyway, she just did an interview on Entertainment Tonight. This is what one Danny EFC is bringing up. Daisy Ridley, and spread this news. Let everybody know about this. Daisy Ridley just did an interview on Entertainment Tonight where she clarified, look, people are misquoting me a little bit. I'm just saying, hey, I signed up for 3. That's all I know about. I don't know what happens after that. So she is open to coming back. She will come back. We already heard Kathleen Kennedy say that they're planning their next 10 films that will include their characters like Rey and Finn and Poe. So she is coming back. She had her comments misinterpreted. And so if you're on any chat boards today or on part of any Twitter discussion, point people to that interview. Let them know Daisy's already said she's been misquoted. She is open to coming back. That's the actual fact of it. So thank you so much for bringing that up, one Danny EFC. Appreciate that. All right. P-Check writes in, keep up the great work, John. Thank you so much, P-Check. I appreciate that very much. Ra Palacio also just put in a super chat. Thank you so much, Ra. Andy A. Hernandez writes, do you think people still want to see Avatar? Look, yes, I do think people still want to see Avatar. I've always said, look, they've waited too long. Avatar is not nearly as popular now as it used to be. Avatar disappeared rather quickly from the pop culture consciousness of our society. It's not going to be as big as the first Avatar, blah, blah, blah. I've said all that, but that is not mutually exclusive from saying there are still people who want to see new Avatar. Absolutely there are. There's an audience. Avatar is going to come and it's going to make money. It would have made a hell of a lot more money if it came out 3 years ago. It would have made a hell of a lot more money if they capitalized on it a little bit more quickly. You didn't need to put out Avatar 2 6 months later, but maybe within the first 2 years. But those two things are not mutually exclusive. Would have done a hell of a lot better 3 years ago. Still going to do well, though. I still believe it's going to do well. And look, the top 1 and the top 2 all-time worldwide box office films both belong to a guy named James Bartholomew Cameron, all right? Don't get into the doubting James Cameron business. That's a bad business to be in. Being in the doubting James Cameron business is going to lead you to bankruptcy. So I still think, yes, I do believe there are people out there who want to see it. I think the movie's going to come out. I think it's going to do well. I just really believe it would have done a lot better years ago. I think they're really late. I think they're really late, and it could have done a lot better. Thanks a lot for the question, Andy. Patricia Luna puts in a super chat. Thank you so much, Patricia. I appreciate that. DD writes, John, you recently mentioned Spider-Man Homecoming and The Incredible Hulk as examples of successful reboots. I think you underestimated that both were part of the MCU. No, I don't think I'm underestimating that at all. I think the fact of the matter is that, look, the fact is you had a character, you had a franchise, and it wasn't quite going the way you wanted to, so you stopped and repurposed it. That is no different from what we're talking, just on a bigger scale. We're just talking on a bigger scale, but really fundamentally, there's no difference between that and what we're talking about with the DCEU. I'm saying that just like the Spider-Man situation and just like the Hulk situation, you have a franchise and a property that isn't going the way you want it to go. Stop, repurpose, relaunch. It's a bigger scale than just Spider-Man. It's a bigger scale than Hulk, but the principles, I believe, are still 100% the same. So look, they could have relaunched Spider-Man in the MCU and it could have sucked. We could have had a lot of people go, come on, this is the third version of Spider-Man in 10 years. I'm sick of it. And they could have walked away from it, but they didn't. They came back, they loved it, and it worked. I firmly believe you can do the same thing with the DCEU, even bigger, with even more success than they had with rebooting Hulk and rebooting Spider-Man. I really do. Thank you so much for the input, though. And I'm sure you're not the only one who feels that way. I'm sure you're going to find a lot of people that agree with you. I happen to disagree, but thank you for putting in that comment. I really appreciate it. Jake C., if I can find it, writes in, besides Marvel, what is the best cinematic universe? Even if you include Marvel, Star Wars is the best cinematic universe. Period. End stop. No questions asked. Star Wars is the best cinematic universe. Then you probably got, then Marvel. Then Marvel, I'll say, is the best cinematic universe after that. Let's see. Jack121 writes, movies you regret not watching sooner or in theater. The Nice Guys for me, I feel guilty. It's so funny. Well, it's my job to see most movies in theaters. So I can't really think of any off the top of my head. I mean, it's a fascinating question, but I can't think off the top of my head of movies that I didn't go to see in theaters that I really wanted to see or that I should have seen. So, it's a good question. I'd have to think about it, but I can't think of any off the top of my head because like I said, it's my job to go to the movie theater and watch movies. So I can't really think of any, but good question. Thanks a lot for asking. Let's see. Big Raffis 30,000 writes, is it possible to reboot the DCU without recasting? No. Look, this question comes up whenever the issue of rebooting, not just with DCU, but other properties as well. If you reboot, reboot. If you're trying to start fresh and you're trying to talk the audience into, hey folks, we're starting fresh. Remember, the DCEU has been losing the audience. The audience has been abandoning the DCEU. If you don't believe me, there is no other explanation for Justice League coming out and only making $94 million. The only explanation for that is gradually more and more and more, the audience has been abandoning the DCEU. So if you want to tell the audience we're starting fresh, you have to send, I believe at any rate, the clear message that you're starting fresh. This is new. This isn't something different. If you were disappointed in what we did before, don't worry about it. This is something brand new. The only way you properly do that is by recasting. And look, I like a lot of the cast that the DCEU has. I love some of the cast the DCEU has. But, you know, if you're going to reboot, reboot. There are other great actors out there. Go get some other great actors, get great writers, get your frickin' studio leadership on board and heading in the same direction and not trying to undermine you, and you can come up with something pretty special. All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. Rodrigo Trinidad writes, if I can find him, there he goes. Hey, John, when Justice League came out, it had an 85% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Now it has 81%. Could this mean people like it? No, 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 no. I've said this many, many times. Ignore. Never pay any attention. Maybe just for interest, but other than that, never pay attention to the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes or the audience score on IMDb, because there is no quality check there. Do you know how many audience reviews there were on Justice League on Rotten Tomatoes before the movie ever played for the public? People can register numbers on Rotten Tomatoes without ever seeing the movie. There's nothing there to ensure that they saw the movie. There were literally tens and tens and tens of thousands of votes on the Rotten Tomatoes audience meter before the movie ever played for a public audience. So it's completely irrelevant. The only audience score that matters is CinemaScore, because CinemaScore actually verifies that they're talking to people who actually watched the movie and can actually only vote once. Therefore, it's the only accurate one. So no, ignore the Rotten Tomatoes. I say this even when the votes are low. Ignore the votes. Don't take them seriously. I mean, it's like, again, it's cool if you just want to look at them for a point of interest. Oh, that's interesting. This got this and that got that. That's fine. But to do any real evaluation, never pay attention to that, because you don't know if it's based on 90% fake votes or not. There's just no way to know. There's just no way to know, and therefore it doesn't really mean anything or prove anything. So that's what I encourage people to think about. Thank you for bringing that up, Rodrigo. I really appreciate it. All right. Next one comes to us from Helena Maris, who writes, Disney is not buying Fox, but 20th Century Fox. So they are buying everything movie-related from Fox. So I believe that you are both right and wrong. Well, yes and no. They're not actually buying everything movie-related. I was reading one report, I believe it was on CNBC, was this one report that was kind of more accurately breaking down what it was they were getting. And again, I mean, I don't think anybody other than the reps of Fox and the reps of Disney really know for sure. But like I said, what I was reading on CSNBC was that it's not like just, boom, buying the entire, everything that's movie related, lock, stock, and barrel comes with them. I'm not sure that that's the case. I'm not sure that that's the case. We'll know more if and when this deal goes through. Then I'm sure we'll all get a much clearer picture of that. But for right now, I'm not really sure that that's the case. Thanks for bringing that up, though. It's a great thing to bring up that we should all keep in mind. All right, next one comes to us from Koba again. And Koba writes in, Universal offered Del Toro the reins to the classic Universal Monsters in 2007. He turned it down and says he regrets it. I didn't realize that. Maybe I did know it and I forgot it, but I didn't realize that. That does create for an interesting scenario, doesn't it? Like, what if they decided to do this Universal Monsters thing and it was all in Guillermo del Toro's hands? Now, the bad side, though, is it means we wouldn't be getting The Shape of Water, which is coming out, which some people are, I haven't seen it yet, I'm seeing it this week, but which some people are saying could be an Oscar contender. So, yeah, it would have been great to get a Guillermo del Toro helmed classic Universal Monsters movie, but at the same time, I'm really looking forward to The Shape of Water. I would hate to think that we weren't going to get that movie, but you're right, that is a fascinating thing. Thanks for bringing that up, Kobe. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, listen, I'm going to ask all of you, no, don't send in any more super chats. I'm going to finish off the super chats I've got, and then I want to make sure I save a bunch of time for the people sending in Twitter questions. So please, no more super chats. This next one comes to us from Manuel Fernandez, who writes, won't the Disney-Fox merger result in the loss of a lot of jobs and a lot of people becoming unemployed? I don't know. We simply don't know. It all depends. Because what does Disney want to do with that once they get those things? Maybe they want to keep it all going. Maybe they want to create a separate division. Because remember, a lot of these big studios then have separate subdivision companies as well. So maybe they do that. Maybe it'll lead to more jobs. Maybe it'll lead to a loss of jobs. We don't know yet. So let's, without getting too excited or too worried at the same time, let's see what happens as this goes through. Is it a possibility that a bunch of people lose their jobs? Absolutely. Happens every day in every industry. It is a possibility. but maybe the opposite effect will happen. So if and when this deal happens, once again, I'm sure we'll get a lot more of the actual details, and we'll see how this is all going to play out, because maybe this could be a really good thing. You never know. All right, next question comes to us from Greg Scott Bailey, who writes, John, keep up the great work. Thank you so much. Streaming question. How did you finally get Super Chats organized? I did. I mean, Super Chats is just a function that YouTube started offering, and I enabled it. And then I started using it, and some people said, hey, you should make it so people can see them. So I figured out a way to get Super Chats on the screen here so you guys could actually see them coming in. Other than that, I didn't really do anything. It's just YouTube said to me, hey, you want to use Super Chats? And I said, sure, okay, that seems like a neat idea. And I enabled it. And you know what? It was enabled for a long time. I think I had it enabled for like 3 weeks before anybody used it once. So, hey, look, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to be totally transparent with you. For me, it's great because it gives me another revenue stream for the show. Because again, I don't get a paycheck from any corporations anymore. Notwithstanding the ad spot I had at the beginning of the show. That's the first ad spot. Did you guys see the ad spot I did at the beginning of the show? That's the very first ad spot, very first ad sponsor I had ever signed up for any of my shows. I was all excited. It was just for today's video, but I was very excited about that. So the Super Chats, it's great on several levels. Number one, it gives me another revenue, ad revenue. So which is great for me. That works great for me. But also it means if you've got a question, if one of the audience really wants to make sure they get a question or their comment made, then a Super Chat ensures that you'll get your question read or your comment read. So it really is kind of a win-win, and I'm still able to save time at the end for live tweets. So to me, it really works. And so far I've been getting some really good feedback about the way we've been organizing it. So thank you guys so much for your support of the Super Chats and everything else that's going on. So hopefully I'm being transparent. I want you guys, no bullshit. I just want you to see how I'm doing things. Thank you so much for the question, man. All right, 3 more quick ones, and then we'll go over to the Twitter stream. Gerard Dean says, hey, John, big fan from Ireland. Thank you so much. Ryan Johnson said yesterday that his new trilogy will not be set in the Old Republic. So, something completely new? Well, I mean, it's possible. But look, even if it was going to be set in the Old Republic is a huge period of time. So even if it was in the era of the Old Republic, it still could have been something completely new. This could be set in between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. Huge period of time there, like 30 years. And yet it still is going to be something completely new. It could happen before the events of Rogue One, and it could still be something completely new. Like, remember, we're only talking about period of time, and just because he picks a certain period of time doesn't necessarily mean he has to pick a legend story that also happened in that period of time. He could pick a period of time and then have a totally new... As a matter of fact, he could tell a brand new trilogy that is happening at the same time as the events of episodes 7, 8, and 9, but just have it off in a completely different part of the galaxy and it's its own story. That's possible too. So just because it's not in the Old Republic doesn't mean it is going to be something completely new, although it will be. But even if it was in the Old Republic, it could have been something completely new. So yes, Gerard, I believe you're absolutely right when you say it's something completely new. We are getting something completely new. It just might be in a time frame that we're already familiar with, and that's totally fine to me. In my books, that's totally fine. All right, next one comes to us from Anthony911, who writes, isn't it crazy that a lot of things on The Simpsons end up coming true? Trump is president, Disney potentially buying Fox Studio. It is crazy. I feel like every single time something big happens in the world, somebody takes a screenshot from an old late 1980s, early 1990s Simpsons episode and puts it on. It's like, oh my God, it totally came true. Whether it was like Super Bowl predictions, Disney buying Fox, the Trump presidency, like a whole bunch of other stuff too. It is kind of crazy. I feel like that happens at least once a year. And maybe I'm wrong, but it feels like at least once a year, something happens in the news, and then somebody takes an old screenshot from a Simpsons episode showing that Simpsons predicted the future. It is kind of crazy how prophetic the people Matt Gorning is over there. All right, final super chat of the day, and then I'm going to head over to the live Twitter stream. And this final super chat comes to us from Tim Osmond, who writes, John, any thoughts on Snoke being an ancient will who made up light and dark for his own profit? I don't think so. I've heard that theory thrown around before. I honestly think when it's all said and done, we're not going to find out a lot about the backstory of Snoke. I mentioned this on Star Wars Talk Tuesday yesterday, that just like in Star Wars, Empire, and Jedi, we never find out squat about the Emperor. We just know he's the Emperor. That's all we needed to know. He's the Emperor, the big bad guy, and he's pretty powerful. That's really all we knew, and that's all we needed to know. For 30 years, that's all we needed to know. And I think Snoke is probably going to end up in that same camp. I really don't think they're going to go too much into Snoke, into his backstory. He just is Supreme Leader Snoke. And if that's the case, and I could be wrong, but if that's the case, I'm perfectly fine for it. I don't think they're going to go into he was one of the Wills or anything. I don't think they're going to go in that direction. That's a little too inside baseball, I think. But you never know. It's possible. If they do, I'm sure it'd be pretty interesting. All right, guys, that will do it for the Super Chats. Thank you to all you guys who sent in Super Chats. I really appreciate it. Now, let's head over to the live Twitter board. I'm going to save some time here to make sure we get through a whole bunch of your tweets. And we will start off with this one. Remember, guys, I don't have time to read through these, but I'm just going to pick them. E.K. Curtis says, John, love the show. Well, thank you so much for taking time to put in a tweet. Tell me you love the show. I appreciate that. Let's see. This one comes to us from EasyBoy6. John, reboot Justice League straight and see? Yeah, I'm totally on board with that. I've mentioned that a number of times. I'm totally on board with that. This next one comes to us from Ben Rayner. John, did you hear about that movie? As for whatever reason, my camera turned off for a second there, so I'll just bring up this other one. Have you heard about that movie, Gotti, being sold back to the producers? Your thoughts? Honestly, I've not heard about that yet. I'll look into it and see what I can see, but I did not hear about that yet at this point. Thank you for bringing that up, Ben. All right, the next question comes to us from You Can Do It 123, who writes, John, I think DC should call Aquaman and Wonder Woman 2 Elseworlds and reboot everything else. I think if you're going to reboot it, you want Aquaman and you want Wonder Woman in those worlds. And so if like you don't want two Wonder Women and two Aquaman in cinematic universes running parallel to each other, I think you just, honestly, to me, I think you just go with it and you just get the ones that you got. This next one comes to us from Andy3636367, who writes, John, will you make a spoiler video for The Last Jedi? If so, will you share the mother of all spoilers, as most watching it will know it? Yes. I think I'll wait till 2 or 3 days after it opens publicly. I will then do a spoiler video for it. And in the spoiler video, I will reveal what the mother of all spoilers is that I know about the film. So that's a good point to bring up. Let's see. This next one comes to us from Hakeem Ray, who writes, John, you mentioned recasting is the only viable answer for Justice League. If they stick with current roster and make a good RT movie, is that a win? What's an RT movie? If they stick with the roster and make a good RT movie. Sorry, man, I can't answer the question when I'm not really clear on what it is you're asking. Sorry, maybe it's me. Maybe it's obvious to everybody else what it is you're asking, and just off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure what it is you're asking. TFA Sucks writes, John, with switching to Patreon from corporate, without details, are you doing okay or getting by financially? Well, look, I'll be honest with you. Again, I'm going to be totally transparent with you guys. When I started, I figured it was going to be at least a year that I was going to be eating away at my savings, because I had a certain amount of savings put away, and I thought it was going to be at least 1 year that I wouldn't be making enough money every month to pay my bills. I can tell you, while I am not yet making as much as I was making at my job, which is fine. I mean, I clearly did not leave a cushy corporate job. Well, not that it was cushy. I didn't leave my corporate job to this because I was going to make a ton more money. Obviously, that wasn't the case. There were other things that were more valuable to me. The independence, working for myself, all that kind of stuff. But I can tell you, as of a few months ago, I was making enough money to pay my bills. Clearly not as much as I used to make, and I'm still not at the point where I'm making as much as I used to make. Not at all. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But thanks to the support, both of viewers, Patreon supporters, people using Super Chat, all that stuff, you guys have made it possible for me to do this and do it without emptying out my savings account. So you guys are making it possible. So when I get on and I say, you guys are the ones who make it possible for me to do these shows, I ain't exaggerating. I ain't lying. That is totally the truth. You guys are making it possible for me to do this. You guys make it possible for Ann to not throw me out of the apartment saying, go get a job. You guys make it possible for me to dedicate my full time to doing these shows and these videos. So thank you so much. I hope that clears it up. Again, I just want to be transparent. I could sit here and lie to you, but I'm not going to. I'm going to be totally transparent, and I hope that clears that up for you guys a little bit. All right. Next tweet comes to us from Dominic Suma, who writes, John, favorite ride at Disneyland? Also, how excited are you for Star Wars Land? Words would not properly express, I should say, how excited I am for Star Wars Land. It does not even get into words. My current favorite ride at Disneyland is easily the Indiana Jones ride. I go every single time Ann and I go to Disneyland, and we go like 4 or 5 times a year. Every time we go to Disneyland, I make sure we take some time and do the old Indiana Jones ride. Absolutely, I do. All right, Gore Obsessed writes, Captain Marvel box office predictions. Impossible to say right now. Let's see what the state of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is. Because look, if Infinity War is great and everybody loves it, that could influence how Captain Marvel does. If it sucks, if Infinity War sucks, that could influence how Captain Marvel does. Then we got to consider, how does the marketing look? What is this? This is way too early to have any kind of a prediction for Captain Marvel at this point. So I'm not even going to try to venture a guess. Let's see. John, what is your favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie? You know what? This changes all the time. I've never been a Psycho guy. Don't get me wrong. I like Psycho. There's North by Northwest. I'm going to go Birds. I think Birds is one that kind of sticks with me most than anything else. Okay, final Twitter question of the day. This one comes to us from Santiago Diaz, who writes, John, how do you feel about the Venom movie? Look, I don't care what anybody else says. I am very enthusiastic about the Venom movie. I am personally very enthusiastic about it. Again, you got Tom Hardy on board. He's very picky about the movies he gets involved with. We've already seen some videos about how committed he is to the role. I mean, take that for what it's worth. I like the people they're bringing on board for it. I'm excited about it. I know everybody's poo-pooing on the idea, but you know what? I don't care. I am enthusiastic about it. I think they could do something really cool and really special with this character and this movie, and I think it could be great. And a lot of people go, well, John, how could it be great if it's this? And how could it be great? There's a million ways it could be great. Just because it doesn't have to follow the formula that we all have got in our heads from the comic books about what Venom is supposed to be. Let's see what they do. They could do something spectacular. And I'm excited about it myself personally. So, yeah, there's that. Hey, I know I said no more Super Chats, but one more did come in. So I'm just going to take that last Super Chat really quick here, and then we'll wrap up today's show. And one last one got snuck in by Matt Glacier, who wrote, Darcy Montgomery has talked about Power Rangers recently. Contract talks stalling, or is the film really dead? Look, the movie did so bad. I mean, it did so bad that I just don't see how on earth you move forward. Remember they said, we've got 7 Power Rangers movies planned. Well, and I like the Power Rangers. Shock and surprise. I liked Power Rangers. I thought that movie was going to be a dumpster fire. And I went and watched it. I thought, you know, I'm having fun. This is a fun little movie. But it did not do well at the box office, like a lot of us predicted it wouldn't. And there's just not enough there. I don't think we're going to see Power Rangers 2. Maybe they'll take a shot at rebooting Power Rangers sometime in the near future, but I don't think we're going to end up seeing Power Rangers 2. All right, guys, that will do it for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for joining. I know this might be the longest episode of the John Campea Show we've ever done, but thank you so much for joining me, guys. Remember, if you're not a subscriber already, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure you're following me on social media, simply at John Campea. Remember, guys, the best part about being a film fan is not agreeing with each other, but having some great passionate debates. Have great passionate debates with each other in the comment section below. But remember, at the end of the day, we're brothers and sisters of film fandom, man. We're all on the same team. We all love films. We're all film fans together. So let's just keep that in mind as we're having our passionate discussions and sharing our different points of view. That's the most important thing. So that'll do it for me, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. My name's John Campea, and until the next video, bye-bye.